Okay, all right. How's everybody doing? Good, good. Well, obviously, really important week for us as an organization. Really important week across the league. A lot of preseason game number 4. This, kind of our final push here with the roster evaluations and getting an opportunity to see all the, the guys that we have. Plus, great competition here Thursday against the Browns. So this will be a critical week for us. I think every year, there's players that play in preseason game number 4 that, will make teams and make an impact and will come up really big from a standpoint of giving us a great evaluation. And, we're no different. We're still in a competitive mode right now as a team, and we're going to go out and practice hard and try to, go out and compete against each other and hopefully improve from where we've been through the last 4 or 5 weeks of camp. So it's it's a great week. I think it's a really important week. I think there's a lot of guys throughout the league that we'll have an opportunity to see play on Thursday night and see what they can do. That will be critical for the weekend when we get into some different aspects of roster building. Someone another opportunity to do that. So, for us, it's a real important week for us to get ready to go. Cleveland, obviously brings a great competitive opponent for us to get ready for. Freddie Kitchens he's a great coach. I've known him for a long time. He's obviously does a great job with their organization now, getting things going in a direction that he wants them to go in. Hired Todd Monken and Steve Wilkes to handle the offense and defensive side of the ball, and Mike Prefer as a special teams coordinator, who obviously we're very familiar with, from his time in Minnesota, and what a great job he does with the special teams. So, so it'll be a good week for us to prepare and get ready to go.
Here today, it's an important week for the finals roster spots. I'm just wondering, a lot of coaches have these guys. Do you have a guy you use an example in your coaching experience that maybe really stood out in this week that went on to capture a roster spot just by that final push?
Yeah, there's a lot of guys actually. I was just kind of thinking about this as you kind of go back through and review some notes, even just the last year. I would say even a guy like D. Virgin, who wasn't even with our team, was out with Houston, who played, and Andre Sachere, who was another guy who we saw, out in film in the 4th preseason game, who played a lot. For us last year, we had guys like Lacey, Joe Dahl, Mike Ford, all guys that, have come in and did a great job for us through the course of the year. There's probably some stories of some guys in the past, too, that have gone out and, done really well in these types of games and have solidified themselves a spot in a roster and a role. So, it is a critical week from that standpoint. Yep, absolutely.
How much? Go ahead. With Steve Longa, he was such a good special teams player here. You haven't seen him in a long time because of the injury. And now he's got a couple of days of practice, before those cuts are made. How do you approach something like that? What do you need to see from him, maybe, to make a determination one way or the other on his, on his future?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us with Steve and having a conversation with him was just, I think from the medical side of it, we had just reached a point where I thought it was a good opportunity just to start playing football. So just give him that opportunity to go out and get into some drills and be able to go practice. And it's been a while since he's been out there. We're excited to get him out there, though. He's done a lot of work behind the scenes. He's really put in the grind from the offseason, trying to really understand the defense and through training camp, paying attention to the installs and making sure the film corrections and all that stuff. So it's just exciting to have him back out there. I know his teammates are really excited to get him out there, but we do understand that, it's been a while since he's been in, on the football field. So we have to take it appropriately from that standpoint. And we'll just go forward from there. But it is an opportunity for us to finally get him on the field, which is great.
When you do that with a vet this late in camp, do you kind of have an idea of whether he's going to make your team or not?
Not really. I think for us, we're just we don't know what's going to happen here in the next 2, 3, 4 days from that standpoint too. Certainly the game and as we go forward and what we need as a team when we get down to it. In the end, we'll try to make the best decisions possible for us. I think it's good that we have a history with a guy like that, too, which we can go back to, and certainly someone that's been in our building nonstop since he couldn't play last year. Just been working really hard, so that obviously helps us from that standpoint. We just I think the best thing for him is to just get out in the field right now and start getting back to football.
We're talking about injury stuff. Your situation at this point?
Yep.
No, I know a couple weeks ago you said it was a day-to-day thing, but at this point, do you feel like you're going to be able to be where you need to be by week 1 or not? Have you been given any indication?
Sure. Good question. Not to get into a big discussion about my injury here, but I did walk with crutches yesterday, so that was good. So we're, very slowly day by day here right now. But it is really just, honestly, it's a safety thing for me and for the players. That's really just my biggest concern. I've got to do my own rehab, but in the end, for the game itself, we'll just gauge that when we get to it.
Much
attention do you have to pay this week to the, I mean, you mentioned there's like 1,100 guys that are going to be available in the next 5 days.
Yeah.
How do you sort of save some time to go through that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that is the huge challenge of this weekend. What's so important is that you do try to give yourself some time here through the course of the weekend to be able to evaluate those guys that, are across the league from that standpoint. Obviously, Bob and his staff, they'll do a great job with that and kind of narrow everything down for us as a coaching staff. If there's anything that we're in that process required or want to take a look at as a deeper dive, we'll go once we get through the week, through Thursday night, through the games. But for us, it's part of the process. But I think you're right from the standpoint of you want to give yourself an opportunity to really kind of take a look at all of that and look at the guys and some of the things that happen. So trying to use that as part of the scheduling is really critically important for us as we kind of push into next week.
One more thing on your schedule, just this week, you obviously got Arizona coming up. I know the quality control guys do a lot of that, pre-planning. But for you, how much of your day or your week do you devote to that versus, the evaluations and everything that you need to do to get ready this week?
Yeah, good. I mean, good point for me as the head coach, obviously, and I would say even a little bit with the coordinators. And just, when I was a coordinator, same thing. You will always try to get ahead of an opponent, whether it's in season or it's preseason, doesn't really matter. And there's some things that you want to look at, but really our focus is Cleveland, and we want to make sure that, like I said, this is such a critical week. We got guys out there that are fighting for jobs, guys that are trying to live out their dreams and things that are really important to them. And you want to make sure that as a coach, you're doing everything possible to allow them to have that opportunity. We all, from standpoint of being little kids growing up in the game of football, we understand what the dreams are and how passionate and important that is. And now being in this situation, you want to make sure you're given every avenue possible to allow those guys to, to be able to hopefully fulfill that.
You talk about versatility a lot, and Graham Glasgow regarding that. He's played all the interior spots now. Just how important is that versatility and what he can do, like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's critical for us in a lot of the positions, and certainly in the offensive line. The interior part of it, when you get into kind of game day mode and some mentalities as far as call it active roster and depth from an offensive line standpoint, the more players that you have up front that can do that, then it maybe allows you to carry an extra player to the game, maybe in that situation where you might be able to bring an extra skill guy or a back, a tight end, a defensive player, or something for that week that you might need because of the versatility up front. I think when those guys are just kind of singular backups from a standpoint of they only play one position in that group, it becomes difficult, week in, week out to prepare for the possibility if there is an injury or a situation where you have to sub somebody out. It just makes things a little bit more complex and can affect the overall game day roster, So those things are critical for us. We look at all those, and that's why, the versatility part or the flexibility part is really important to us.
See Damon and Mike.
Go ahead.
You can see Damon and Mike together, for the first time. Just when you went back and watched it, how they fit in and your evaluation of their performance.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to have those guys out there. Certainly, I think there's a level of energy and excitement to have those guys on the field. I think they'll both agree that they got a long way to go. And, there's a lot of reps missed there that both of them are trying to do the best they can. Good thing about both those guys is, true professionals. They are probably more critical on themselves than anybody else is. And from that standpoint, also very eager to make sure that they're going to perform at the best of their ability. So I think that was great for them to be able to feel that in game and to really, get a good self-assessment of where they're at and where they need to be, because they obviously have played in the league long enough to know, all right, what does it need to feel like week one? So we're just got to do the best we can to get them to that point.
Revisiting the receiver depth after the Bills game, none of those guys had more than reception. Obviously, Travis put the one on the ground late in the contest. Were there things outside? I know you said special teams are really important with that evaluation. Special teams, blocking. Were there things you saw positive from that group that are still fighting for those spots?
Yeah, I think a lot of it too is we really evaluate the coverage part of the special teams. So some of those guys that can work into some of those different, we call them gunner positions right out on the edge, or even the kickoff coverage guys that are setting the edge of some of those return games that we have to see. And certainly with Buffalo, with the dangerous returners that they had, that was kind of critical for us to get an evaluation of those guys in those units. So we'll just keep mixing them into those groups and, see how it comes out in the end. But the special teams is such a big part of it. And a lot of it is with receivers, wide receivers in particular. You do want to see their coverage ability and their tackling ability, because that's something that's not really maybe natural that you'll see every single play, as opposed to a defensive player that you're going to work on tackling from that standpoint, and coverage and leverage and force and all those things that are inherent to defensive football. When you try to transfer that to the offensive skill positions, it's something you have to see to be able to make sure that it's in a good competitive place.
Yeah, what was your reaction to see Andrew Luck? We haven't seen you since then. To see Andrew Luck retire, was there a surprise? Was there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I played against him for a little while and had some great battles, and was a great player, and so just nothing but good memories of those competitions and those situations. But other than that, I'm sure he's doing whatever he feels is best for him and his family. We're just pretty locked in here on the Lions, just to try to make sure that we're moving in the right direction. We got some pretty big decisions coming up, and like I said, this is a week that I take pretty serious. I mean, you got to imagine the stress level and the pressure that a lot of these guys are going through right now this week. That's real. It's real, and it's something that we're very conscious of, that we want to make sure we do a good job of in the end. Okay, all right, appreciate it.